Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie Meehan. I am a writing coordinator in Simsbury, Connecticut, and I wrote the book that is part of the Five to Thrive series, Answers to Your Biggest Questions About Teaching Elementary Writing. Maybe they're your biggest questions. Maybe you have additional questions. Did my best to try to think about what questions people might have as they're getting started with teaching writing to students. If you have additional questions, I would welcome them and try to answer them. I want to just talk to you a little bit about how the book is set up and give you sort of a format to think about it. There are 5 chapters, and there's also an introduction, and the introduction is important. The introduction invites you to really think about what are your beliefs when it comes to teaching writing. So for me, and again, I had to really distill those beliefs out. I believe that students should have teachers who write. I think that that is just an unbelievably important thing that teachers do. I think that when I write, I think about where people can get stuck. I become more empathetic and I can speak from a place of like, yeah, I had that issue also. So I have that. I can use my writing for kids and they see me as a member of their writing community. So that's an important part. And then another important part is that I can tailor my writing to whatever it is that is really responsive to the students in my classroom. So it can be what they're interested in, and it can also be what they need to learn. So I can strategically write in ways that work for the students who I'm working with. So that's one of my big beliefs. I also believe that kids should have choice. Sometimes it's not always the topic, it can't be that, but we can give them choice about what they use to write with, what paper they use, where they write, what music they use, if they use music at all. There's a lot of room for choice, and I think that the more that I try to provide that, the more autonomy and agency and power they feel, and the more identity they develop as writers. And then I also really have a big belief that kids need time, and all writers need time to write. It's so easy to get caught up in instructing and teaching and teaching and teaching without giving time to go practice. So a big belief is that kids need time. So that introduction really gives you the time and the space to think, what are my beliefs that are going to guide me? They don't have to be my beliefs. They can be yours. So that takes you into chapter 1, which focuses on building a community of writers. And maybe my favorite part of that chapter was thinking about the language that a writing community has, because really any community has a shared language. And I don't know that I ever spent enough time thinking, what's the language of this writing community, until I got going writing this book and really thinking about that. So that might be my favorite part about chapter 1. Chapters 2, 3, and 4 in my head go hand in hand and are intertwined and linked, because they are the instructional core. They address issues that you have with curriculum, just the what are you going to teach, right? And then they get into the instruction. So that's the whole piece of how are you going to teach it, and the assessment. So have the kids learned? So again, when I think about that core of how we teach, you've got what you're teaching, the curriculum, how you're teaching the instruction, are kids learning the assessment. It was hard to pull those apart, but I did my best and address the questions that exist within them. I lean into the model of writing workshop. So as you read, it could make more sense to you to envision that There's a short instructional period at the beginning of a writing block. So if you're thinking, okay, a 45-minute to 60-minute time for writing, there's a short time where I'm teaching one particular skill. It could be a skill that has to do with the writing genre that they're working on. It could also be a skill that has to do with a writing behavior or a structure of what the expectation is for how the community works. But there's a short instructional time where I'm delivering that clear point. Then there's independent practice time, which leans into that belief that I have of writers need time to practice. So there's time built in for kids to be trying out not only the skill that I've taught today or on that given day, but building all of the skills, because they're building a repertoire of different skills and need to put them all together and decide on what they're working on and how they're doing it. So you give them time. I interrupt kids in their work, usually once, sometimes twice, and just either remind them of something else that I've taught, maybe teach them something new, maybe honor them or somebody for doing something that I'm like, wow, that was cool. So there's that piece that's built into that writing block and more time for them to practice, followed by an end of the lesson share or closing statement or one more thing I'm going to teach them that they can be like having on deck for the next day, getting them excited for the next day. So as you're reading it, it might help you to just understand that that is how I'm envisioning a writing block. And the more that that's what you're using, the more a lot of what I've written may make sense. So there's that. I also think about the curriculum and what I'm writing in terms of units. So I take the information, narrative, and opinion writing, and the standards that are set by the Common Core State Standards. In Connecticut, we call them the Connecticut State Standards, but they are really the same as the Common Core. So that's in my head as I'm thinking about what are my units that kids are going to focus on for 6 to 8 weeks. So that also could help you as you're thinking about your curriculum and your instruction and your assessment. As I got into the assessment chapter, what I really wanted just to say out loud and in the spirit of positivity, assessment is a great thing. And it lets us know, have kids learned? And what do I need to teach them next? Or what do I have to go back and review so that can move on? So I look at assessment in a really positive light, and I hope that this book helps you to look at assessment in a positive light. I think it's easy to think assessment and think SATs and AP exams and, you know, these great big tests that we hated taking, or at least I hated taking. And when I'm teaching in a writing classroom, the truth of the matter is I'm assessing all the time. I'm looking over kids' shoulders and I'm celebrating, like, look at what you did. I'm taking a look and seeing that. And so I hope that this book helps you look over their shoulders in that spirit of what are kids doing that's great, that I'm excited about, and what could they do next? So there's that. So that's the introduction, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chapter 5 is all about how do we turn the agency and the decision-making process of being a writer over from teacher to student. So how do we push that agency and the responsibility of being writers away from ourselves and telling kids what to do, and more toward kids making decisions about what they're going to do? So I think if I were to maybe revise a book at any point, and writers always are revising. It's weird to have a published book and be like, wait, I wanted to add something. Chapter 5 gets into the executive functioning that exists within writing. Like, what are the decisions that you make on game day, and how do we empower kids to make those decisions so that they are really truly the captains of their own writing? So hopefully that preview of the book makes it that much easier for you to read and think about and ask questions about and find answers to your biggest questions about teaching elementary writing. If you have any other questions, I am always happy to answer and talk and think about the work and the knowledge and the everything that goes into being a really great teacher of writing. Be a writer, that's a big one. Feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Twitter at Melanie Meehan 1. You can also email me at meehanmelanie@gmail.com, and I'm always happy to participate in conversations and grapple with questions and ideas. So thank you for having an interest in it. Thank you for all the work that you do with and for kids, and have a fabulous year teaching everything you teach.